champion who believes that Nigerians with disability are on the verge of overcoming the age-long social stigma and inequality. In collaboration with the European Union, Sight Savers International, the Nigerian media, and other partners, Dr. J, through the ABLE Foundation, is working towards a total transformation of the landscape of disabilities in Nigeria by changing the perceptions via strong inclusion efforts. Dr. Epele is a God-fearing gentleman, a husband of one wife, a father, and my own cousin. He is a preacher of the gospel and a very big supporter of Marvelous Friends. And that is why a large number of Marvelous Friends have come to honor him and present an award of recognition in appreciation of all his efforts, love for the less privileged. This award that I'm presenting now is an appreciation of your tremendous, consistent financial and material support given to Marvelous Friends over the years to support the widows, the orphans, the handicapped, and the indigent students. Thank you so much. God bless you. Marvelous Friends. We also have an award for Dr. James. Yes, I know. Because I have heard about his work, his contributions, his support, everything he has been doing to make better the disabled persons living with disabilities. He has been doing a lot of work. Sitting down there, listening to him, he deserves to be given double award. I listened to him, I was carried away. I said, this is somebody who is in love with what he is doing. I am really impressed. God bless you, sir. This award, a special appreciation to be presented to Dr. James Laulu, Executive Secretary, National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, in appreciation of your consistent support for the less privileged in our society. Thank you. Marvelous friend. Thank you.
Let me respond on behalf of what the award. I want to thank them for recognizing the little effort of this privilege. Deeply appreciate this. Dedicate this totally to the disability community in Nigeria. This is a goal to carry. They will do more. I take this small opportunity as well before the election of Commissia. Still my name of Section 29 of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act in 2018. It says 5% of the total workforce of institutions, government are supposed to provide for persons with disabilities. And then as we approach the 2023 general election, we are calling on our INEC chairman as he comes here, all the ad hoc staff that are supposed to do the election for the 2023. We want extra commitment from our chairman here to provide that 5% for the disability community. On our own side as an institution, we are ever ready and committed to provide the need for the 5% to the INEC chairman to make sure that we will see the ability in disability, and that once we participate in the election, it's automatically going to be peaceful. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Very quickly, and I want to sincerely appeal to the journalists in the building. We thank you for your time, and we hope that you will just remain for the rest of the day. We'll be running through this program, I want to assure you. And very, very quickly, permit me to move to the next item. In other parts of the world, they are beginning to walk around inclusiveness or inclusivity. And for us here, it is also important that we try to look at that. When the INEC chairman resumed, he started off first with a 5-year strategic plan. He had moved on from that point to continue to work around issues of inclusiveness. The biggest problem you can have in a country is not only not to have access to the polls, but the biggest is not to have access to the INEC chairman. But for us here, particularly members of the disability community, we have two-way access to the INEC chairman. He does not only give us access to him, he uses our suggestions every time, and he also comes to spend time with us. So we have access to him, and he also has access to us. Let's clap for the chairman, please. Under his leadership, we have also witnessed the launch and implementation of the INEC framework on access and participation of persons with disability in the electoral process, the inclusion of specific provisions in the Electoral Act, among others. So distinguished guests, while other countries are asking, what is Nigeria doing with regards to access to the electoral process, electoral services, or the needs of the persons with disabilities, or the inclusion considering policies or accessibility to books, ballot guides, and materials? It is my honor to invite the man who has all of these in his pouch. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let's therefore welcome our keynote speaker for today, who will answer these questions and make all the other commitments. Let's welcome Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, the chairman of INEC. As he delivers for us, the keynote for us today is a major commitment ahead of 2023 elections. Please, another round of applause for me.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister of Women Affairs, the Chairman of the National Population Commission, the National Commissioner in charge of Information and Voter Education, INEC, my colleague, Barrister Festus Okoye, the Executive Secretary, National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, the Executive Director of Inclusive Friends, the President of JONAPID, other representatives of the disability community, President of the NIPR, members of the Diplomatic Corps, our development partners, the panelists, civil society organizations, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I deliberately reserved recognition for the president of the Albino Foundation last, because he's our host, he shouldn't come last. It shouldn't come first. We should come after we recognize all the other guests. So let me start by discharging my first obligation on this occasion. And my first obligation on behalf of the Independent National Electoral Commission is to thank the Albino Foundation for the kind invitation to speak on this occasion. The campaign to reduce voter apathy and promote the mainstreaming of persons with disabilities in the electoral process is a laudable initiative. And I must say from the outset that persons with disabilities are citizens and have the right to participate in all areas of human activity without stigma or discrimination. Their systematic exclusion on account of disability has affected a significant part of the Nigerian population from effective participation in many human endeavors, especially political and leadership roles at all levels. And this is clearly unacceptable. The National Population Commission, and I'm happy that the chairman of the Population Commission is here, estimates that at least 19 million Nigerians are living with disabilities. From our records as the election management body, many of them are actually registered voters. We owe it a duty to our democratic and electoral processes, as well as national growth and development, to encourage their active participation as citizens with equal rights. They constitute the category of marginalized groups along with women and youth. Therefore, all barriers to their inclusion must be dismantled. In partnership with the disability community, INEC will continue to promote inclusivity, not in a symbolic way, but in a very practical way. Our emphasis is not just on their participation as candidates during elections in particular, but involvement in the electoral process in general. And already we have taken several practical steps in that direction. I recall that a few years ago, the Commission accredited persons with disabilities as election observers. By this decision, Nigeria became the first country in Africa where persons with disabilities in their own right observed elections, beginning with the Edo and Ondo governorship election in 2016. The maiden report of their observation, entitled Disability Votes Matter, was launched in October 2017, and I was personally there when it was launched. I am glad to note that persons with disabilities have remained active election observers since then. This is significant because the feedback received from their observation reports helped the Commission to engage more with the disability community at consultative meetings and to respond to their needs during elections. I promised Grace Jerry in 2017. At that time, I was holding the rotating presidency of the ECOWAS network of electoral commissions, that I was going to be an ambassador of the disability community in Nigeria. And I shared that report with all my colleagues in the West Africa sub-region. And I think they profoundly appreciated the efforts of the disability community in Nigeria. The Commission launched the INEC framework on access and participation of persons with disabilities in the electoral process. Beyond that, a new department, and this has been mentioned, of gender and inclusivity, headed by a director, was established after the 2019 general election. Working with political parties, we also encourage them to create PWD desk offices. I'm glad that some of them have made provision for PWDs as members of their National Working Committee. If you notice at the convention of some of the parties, there were specific offices designated for persons with disabilities. This is as a result of our engagement with the political parties, and we are prepared to do more. However, there is so much to do to address the persistent gap in political participation and inclusion of people with disabilities in party leadership and nomination of candidates for elections. I urge the political parties to do more. One of the progressive provisions of the 2022 Electoral Act is the specific provision on the participation of persons with disabilities in the electoral process. Section 54 provides for assistive and inclusive devices, which in a sense, the Electoral Act has codified some of the initiatives already undertaken by the Commission. So much of what my brother, the Executive Secretary of the Commission said is actually what we are already doing. And so much of what I have today is actually preaching to the converted. We're already on the same page on this. The introduction of the assistive devices such as the Braille ballot guide, magnifying glasses, and posters for the deaf were all products of our engagement with the disability community. And in implementing the provisions of Section 54 of the Electoral Act, we will continue to engage with the disability community, without which the Commission cannot provide the appropriate interventions needed to facilitate their full participation in the electoral process. As we continue to prepare for the 2023 general election, we'll do more. But for us to serve the inclusivity or disability community better, we need more reliable data on disability, particularly the locations with the largest concentration of PWDs. I'm glad that working together, a lot has been generated. And for our part, we have also gathered data on disability from the last voter registration exercise, which we disaggregated by type of disability. For instance, we now know the percentages of new registrants with albinism. We have the statistics nationwide of all new registrants. We now know the distribution nationwide of registrants suffering from blindness or hearing challenges or spinal cord injuries or Down syndrome or little stature. We have collected the data. But for the previous registrations for the period before the 2019 general election, what we have been doing during the off-cycle elections is when a person with disability approaches the presiding officer to vote, we will then tick against that person's name his or her type of disability. And that has also helped us. The whole idea is to have the data so that we can serve persons with disabilities better on election day. You may also recall that for the first time in the history of elections in Nigeria, persons with disabilities drawn from the National Youth Service Corps participated as presiding officers at polling units in the last governorship election in Osun State. 10 of them were trained and deployed. We worked with the NYSC to deploy them on condition that we guarantee their safety. We appeal to the political parties, the polling agents, and voters to cooperate with them and the security agencies to protect them. It was a happy experience. They discharged their responsibilities like all other ad hoc staff. And here, I must commend the leadership of the NYSC, which also deemed it appropriate to recognize their contributions by awarding them certificates of commendation after the election. All 10 of them were awarded certificates of commendation. And in pursuit of our equal opportunities policy for all Nigerians, irrespective of disability, we look forward to other categories of persons living with disabilities to serve as supervisors, monitors, collation, and even returning officers during elections. So, Executive Secretary, I wish to assure you that we are already on the path to meeting some of your recommendations. On accessibility to voting and collection locations for persons with disabilities, we will continue to engage with proprietors of schools and owners of facilities used during elections to provide ramps for citizens in wheelchairs. Most of the facilities are public schools and public institutions. INEC doesn't own the buildings. They are in the main public institutions used every 4 years or as the need arises for the conduct of elections. Let me therefore on this note call on governments as well as proprietors and service providers across the country to ensure that persons with disabilities have access to all facilities, not just for the purpose of elections, but as a matter of responsibility. Wherever they are, persons with disabilities should have unimpeded access to all facilities, whether it's for education or health or whatever, not just for elections. And I must add that it does not take much to do so. What does it take to provide a ramp into public buildings and schools that people can use every day throughout the year, not necessarily when elections are around the corner? So I was asked to give a keynote address, but sometimes I hardly define the difference between keynote address and just an address. And I know that there is a panel on which a national commissioner from INEC is going to serve. So I've decided to take, just like the other Google messages, 2 long minutes for my address, rather than a longer period of time for a keynote address. So on this note, I want to commend the Albedo Foundation. Jack has been a very good friend for collaborating with INEC and other stakeholders for working tirelessly towards enhancing the practical participation of PWDs in the electoral process in Nigeria. I wish you a blissful discussions. I thank you and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Please put your hands together for him. This is indeed a keynote address with all the keys intact. That is enough for our panelists to chew on. But just before we do that, we'll take a video and then we'll do, the press say they need to take pictures for their front pages. So we'll just do that quickly and then we'll go on to, so we have a 2-minute video. If we just watch that, and afterwards we'll take the pictures. For the journalists, we want to be on the front pages of all the papers tomorrow. So we'll do that quickly.
I'm an artist. I studied fine and applied arts at Delta State University, Abaca. I'm a single mom and I'm a person with albinism. Many times I heard that election is coming, I keep having nightmares that God, how are we going to face this?
The EU SDGs project, which is focused on governance and electoral process in Nigeria, is a welcome development. The impact is overwhelming. One very glowing milestone is the introduction of the disability component in the electoral process of 2022, which stipulates in section 54, subsection 1 and 2, giving priority voting to persons with disability, giving the INEC to use assistive devices in the electoral process. For the first time in the history of Nigeria, a person with disabilities, yours truly, participated as a presidential aspirant during the purchase of aspiration forms. Most every person with disability were given forms for free.
Before the electoral reform, I used to be scared because when I look at the queue, it was so long. And because due to our condition, we were able to withstand the sun. But now that they have reformed it, by the time I get to the electoral venue, before you know it, the electoral officers just come, even when I did not even ask them, they will just come forward Please leave this one. Come, let me attend to you. You understand? Those are one of the things. And before, you will see the way they will arrange the venue. It will not be accessible for persons on physically challenged, on which imagine the table or where they are having the registration is very high. How will somebody on wheelchair access it? But no, it wasn't like that. Everything is now balanced. Everybody is being carried along. We're not left out any longer.
Person with disability in Nigeria, do you know you have a right to vote in the upcoming general elections and subsequent off-cycle elections?
The forthcoming 2023 election in Nigeria will feature not less than 16% of persons with disability as eligible voters. We call it Vote Able. You call it participation of persons with disability in the electoral process. Go out and vote.
From the North Central to the Northeast, Northwest, Southwest, Southeast, and South-South, the ABLE Foundation is safeguarding disability inclusion in Nigeria's electoral process through a nationwide voter education campaign for the community of persons with disabilities. The Vote Able scheduled activities will commence with a national press conference in Abuja on the 17th of October 2022, while state activities will hold as follows: Abuja, October 19th, Kaduna, October 24th, Gombe, October 31st, Port Harcourt, November 7th, Enugu, November 14th, Lagos, November 21st. Vote Able. Voting is our right.
This project is funded by the European Union through its EU SDGA program and brought to you by the ABLE Foundation in collaboration with the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That, of course, is a very special commercial break. We also want to thank the INEC chairman for not coming alone, but for also coming with his federal commissioners. We have the Honorable Federal Commissioner for representing Kaduna, Dr. ABLE2VOTE. Please put your hands together for him. Thank you. We have also the Honorable Federal Commissioner representing Niger, Honorable Baptiju Usman. You're welcome. We have also Honorable Ejike Eze for Enugu. Thank you very much. We have Professor Uba Inabwe for Imo. Thank you very much, Honorable Federal Commissioner, and Honorable Johnny Wanme for ABLE. Thank you, sir. Let me also quickly recognize the representative of the U.S. Embassy, represented here by Amanda Watley. You're welcome. Okay, I've been told that they are resident commissioners. Okay, actually, okay, so they are National Population Commission. See the way I've just appointed new officers for it. Well, it's those who broke the note for it. You see why I said it earlier that the FC is under the control of those who hired him. But I apologize, sir. Please. So thank you very much for your Honorable Federal Commissioners for the National Population Commission. Thank you. So we'll do the pictures quickly. Gentlemen of the press, if you're ready. I know that the INEC Commissioner will be in both of the pictures. So the first picture will have the INEC Chairman, and then we'll have Jake will join. Then we'll have the Chairman of the NPC. We'll have the representative of the Honorable Minister. Can we just come so that we can take this picture? Because we'll do them two. They told me it shouldn't be more than 5 persons in one picture because they want to use it for front page. I have to buy all the newspapers tomorrow. So the first picture will be this set of people? Yes. They are not more than 5. We'll do another one, I want to promise you. Thank you. The second picture will still have the INEC chairman and Jake in it. The others will excuse us. Thank you. Let's welcome Sam Amadi. Please, let's have you. So it's a first of the three. I'm sure you can join this one now. The NPC chairman, so you were in the first one. I think you joined this. Project manager of ABLE Foundation, please join this picture. Let's wait for the project manager, please. Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together for the chairman. So the next, very quickly, will be constituting our panel. Our discussion will be around security issues, disability, and prevalent gaps in electoral rights of persons with disability. Well, this will be our focus. We're talking about voting. We'll also be talking about access. Let me quickly constitute our panel, and then I'll invite the moderator to take his opening shot and take his business further. Barrister Festus Okoye is the INEC National Commissioner for Voter Education. Please put your hands together for him as he comes up. He used to be our lifesaver in those days in Kaduna. Any small problem you run to Barrister Festus in Kaduna. Please clap for him especially. We have also the Executive Secretary, National Commission of Persons with Disabilities, Dr. James Lalo. Please put your hands together for him. Let me invite Ms. Grace Jerry, Executive Director, Inclusive Friends Association. Please put your hands together as she comes up. Hope there is access. We have also Mr. Emmanuel Ayogu, Chief Operating Officer, Cedar Seed Foundation, CSF. And to help us moderate this panel, let me especially invite the Executive Director, School of Social and Political Thoughts, Dr. Sam Amadi. Please put your hands together for him.
Hello.
Okay, thank you very much. While we allow the dignitaries to leave, I think we can now settle down for an important conversation. We have approximately 1 hour for this conversation, at least by the schedule. Issues around disability as related to electoral process. And we have a great panel who are either policymakers, managers of the process, or themselves activists and advocates. I think first, let me join to commend INEC for some of the improvements. I worked as chair of the stakeholder group that looked at the disability part of the Electoral Act, and I will say that INEC did a great job of incorporating almost all of most of the recommendations. So I think that the panel will look at maybe what has been done, what needs to be done, how we can better protect and improve performance of persons with disability in the upcoming election. One problem with when big guns come to events is that when they're leaving, they throw the whole place into pandemic. You can see that everybody is going towards the INEC chair and the chair of the Nigerian Population Commission. So I hope they will not distract us more. But we'll go ahead. We will have about 15 to 20 minutes, 15 minutes first. I think let's have 15 minutes for each of the panelists, after which we can have some wrap up and question and answer. So let's take first 10 minutes. Then we'll get back, we'll get some comments, and then we'll come back to them. So let me start with my friend Festus, who has estranged from me since he became commissioner. But it's good that I will be very biased against his view today for what I'm moderating. But it's an honor to invite Honorable Festus Okoye to, I think we can all sit from there, make a comment to speak to the issue while I take my seat.
So I'm a lawyer by training, so I've been trained to stand and make my points and advocate my points. I think I consider it a great privilege to really be here. I consider it a privilege in the sense that when I was invited, I was not even too sure I was going to be here because the chairman and I just came back from a very long journey, and I was feeling slightly tired. But he convinced me that this particular event is one that we must attend. Let me just say from the outset that during the period the National Assembly was working on the new electoral legal framework, I had the privilege of chairing the technical committee relating to the Electoral Act 2022. And when the issues around disability was tabled, the chairman of the commission was really passionate about issues around persons with disability. Now, the first issue we did was to extract a commitment from the National Assembly to impute issues around disability in the electoral legal framework. This is because before the Electoral Act 2022, the Independent National Electoral Commission had introduced assistive materials to assist persons with disability in the electoral process. But there was no clear legal framework backing what we have done. And we didn't want to leave it at the level of regulation. We wanted to leave it to make sure that we left it as a law for any other incoming administration to implement. Secondly, we also insisted that in terms of enumeration, in terms of voters registration, that we want to know where persons with disability are and the type of disability they have. And that was why during the continuous voters registration exercise, we recorded the type of disability persons have, so that if somebody has sight impairment, we will know the type of assistive material to deploy. We will know when to deploy braille ballot guide. We will know when to deploy aware to deploy magnifying glass. And that's exactly what we have done. So we have gathered enough data and enough materials to assist in planning and also assist in our deployment. And the Commission has also collaborated with the different clusters of persons with disabilities in terms of collecting data to enable us also deploy and also deploy very well. The one big challenge we have, and one of the biggest challenges in the electoral process, is that during the period of election, the electoral process in Nigeria is very emotional and very emotive. There are persons who go to the polling unit as early as 5 a.m. in the morning. I know of a community in Kaduna called Rigasa, where even married women go to the polling unit with their cooking utensils, and everything happens at the polling unit on election day. So getting persons who are passionate about voting to also make provision and also give way and give some level of assistance to persons with disability has been very, very difficult. So what we have done is that we have increased the level of training we give to our presiding officers, so that the presiding officers will understand properly the policies and programs of the commission relating to the issues around disability, so that when persons with disability come around, they will give them a preference in terms of the voting process. Not only that, the commission also decided to increase the number of polling units in Nigeria from slightly less than 120,000 to over 176,000. So what we have done is that we not only increased the polling units, but we took out some of the polling units and took them closer to where persons live and where persons work, so that persons with disability can access the polling units on time. Persons who are pregnant women and lactating mothers can also access the polling units without any difficulty. So that's the second thing we have done. But I think that we still need more advocacy. We need better planning in order to integrate much more comprehensively and fundamentally persons living with disability, in the electoral process. I believe that this present commission, and within this present commission, no Nigerian will be left behind. All Nigerians are equal before the law, and all Nigerians deserve the right to be integrated into the electoral process. And in the Osun governorship election, we make sure that some of our presiding officers are persons with disability. And in the 2023 election, as the chairman has pointed out, we are going to make sure that we evolve a deliberate policy to get as many persons living with disability as possible to serve as presiding officers, assistant presiding officers, supervisory presiding officers, and collation officers in the electoral process. I am sure that we are not where we want to be. We have not attained that level of diligence and that level of rainbow correlation that will enable us to mainstream persons with disability in the electoral process. But I believe that the small incremental changes that is going on in the commission will go a long way in making sure that this integration and this mainstreaming takes place. We are not preaching to outsiders. Within the commission itself, we are also making sure that we walk the talk. In other words, we are making sure that what we preach is what we observe in the commission. And that's why we created a gender and inclusivity department to deal more fundamentally with some of these issues. And so I believe that we need a rainbow coalition of Nigerians. We need to carry every person along, whether in terms of gender and whether in terms of disability. That is the only way we can build a nation and we can have a country where everybody finds himself or herself inside it. And so we are not where we want to be, but we'll keep on working to make sure that this country works for everybody that lives in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You did well. Laid out clearly the framework, looking at what has been done and what has not been done, particularly how INEC has tried to respond to the challenge. I want to point out is correct that even before this Electoral Act, INEC has started implementing some of these measures administratively, but they didn't have the backing of law. There was an issue around when we were doing the drafts, look at the drafts again, issue around how you change behavior so that you prioritize persons with disability first to do, first to vote. I think the law has tried to address those. So let's give him a round of applause for his presentation. I think I would like to invite well, maybe I will alter it to the left and to the right, as you to do this. I would like to invite who is the Chief Operating Officer of Cedar Seed Foundation for his first look at this issue before I go back to my friend on the left and finally my.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Amadi. It's actually an honor meeting for the first time. I would also want to appreciate the Executive Director of the ABLE Foundation, Dr. Jake Pele, for inviting us. I am actually here on behalf of my ED, Madam Lois Sauta, who has asked me to represent her in this event today. Okay, I think INEC has actually achieved a lot. The administration that is in place in INEC, led by Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has actually done a lot in terms of inclusion by the framework for access and participation that I have established. Personally, as an INEC ad hoc staff in the 2019 general election, I think we have made a great progress in bringing the polling units closer to persons with disability, and also instituting the Directorate for Gender and Inclusion at the INEC, and also even in the bimodal, the BVAS application. I remember in the 2019 election, persons who were having this Hansen disease couldn't actually comprehend using that card reader machines back then. So the bimodal verification as an accreditation system has actually made it also possible for more persons to be included, However, there are a lot of things, as the National Commissioner for Voter Education have said. There are a lot of things that we can still do going forward in terms of education. If in the 2019 election, I remember that a lot of persons were not aware that persons with disability should have priority access in voting, should have priority access even if they come late to the polling units, that they should be the ones to be accorded that priority right. So I think this is area that INEC also going forward in the 2023 general election can partner with faith-based organizations. I keep saying that these CBOs, faith-based organizations, CSOs, will play a greater role in this voter education with regards to priority access for persons with disability. And when the chairman of INEC was making his remark earlier, he noted that the facilities that will be used in the 2023, even in other election cycles that were had, belong to private organizations. So it is important also that in the 2023 elections, that INEC should reach out to these facility owners using the different state INEC heads to reach out at the state level, at the local level, to reach out to these persons so that they can reach a kind of partnership. After all, the INEC framework Objective 2 and Objective 4 talked about partnering with stakeholders to ensure accessibility at the polling unit. So I think INEC should do more work with regards to this so that persons with disability would also would have access. Those polling units would be accessible. In the last council election in the FCT, we experienced some lapses, because I served as an observer, we experienced some lapses in some units. Then also, while INEC has actually made polling units closer to persons with disability, first-time registrars, persons with disability, first-time registrars who have registered, have not been able to collect their voter card, because without your voter card, your right that is guaranteed by the law and all the legal documents that have guaranteed your right will become useless. And I am saying this because recently I was at the INEC office in Buhari Area Council, and I was thinking aloud. I was just discussing. I was asking the INEC officials there, is there any other place within the council where people can collect their voter card? And they said no, that it is only in the in that Buhari Area Council INEC So, and if you look at the different polling units from, or the distance from these different polling units that these persons have registered, the collection, the distance is very long. So please, I would also, that's my take on that. Thank you very much.
Let's give applause. I think two key points I take away: the need for partnership with faith-based organizations. I mean, that's self-suggesting because of their credibility. These are credible organizations that otherwise are involved in people's lives on a daily basis in positive manner. So, electoral process would be one that they can also enhance. And again, the issue around getting the voting collection centers close as possible to the persons with disability. I think the INEC chairman and the INEC commissioner have emphasized efforts they have done in that regard. But maybe when we get to electronic voting, it will be much easier people with disability and all of us actually not to run some of these costs that we incur every day. Well, I would like to, at this point, invite Mr. James Malu, who is the Deputy Secretary of the National Commission for Persons with Disability, the one who is the regulator and the promoter of the welfare and well-being of persons with disabilities. For his contribution.
Now all the protocols have gone, so no more protocols now. First of all, the last point, my brother was able to raise. I mean, the issue of voters card, collection of voters card related to that. This is another one perspective. I am here continuing to look at one side from the one side as a person with a disability. So I am from both the demand side and the supply side. The issue of collection of voters cards is another very important issue. We have different interests as an institution in this area. We want to see how we can be able to work together with INI to be able to address this challenge. Sometimes you can see a lot of people will go and register for their voters card. Again, but it's very difficult to be able to go out for it. Now, the disability community, it is of interest to us. We are able to collaborate with INEC to get the data of disabilities that already registered for their voters card. If we are able to get that, we will use all the necessary structures of the disability community down to the community level to be able to make sure that we pursue everybody to be able to go out for the voters card. Additionally, there can be some special ways trying to reach out to the disability community to be able to get their voters. To register is another thing. To go and collect it is another thing. To go for accreditation for voting is another thing. And to be patient to wait and do the voting is another thing. So when you look at all of this, they have the necessary processes that only patience can enable us to be able to perform our civil rights as a community. We will continue to shout that we have the number. We will continue to shout that we have the PVCs in our hands. We must have to make that PVCs to be useful. This is another thing. Another area, for me as a person with disability. So, send them to the presentation of fully units is very important. Like when you come along, some of the schooling officers here may like to ask you some questions. They would like to explain something for you. They would like to tell you something in the process before you are able to vote. I can understand that in some voting fully unit voting centers, when you come early in the morning, they will try to address you, the people here, and try to inform them all the necessary rules, the regulations at that point, so that they can be able to understand it before they start voting, before they start the accreditation and the voting, how the machines work, how you are expected to behave, and all that things are happening at the community. So when something comes like this, we come with our ears closed, and we cannot be able to hear all this type of information is another problem. Secondly, the attitude of the ad hoc staff at the Pune unit again is another issue of concern. Because when you come, you tell them you are not hearing, we are participating. Okay. Stay here, stay here, stay here, stay here, just stay here. When we finish here, we will come and attend to you. That is another challenge. Parking us aside can get us somehow to avoid getting to anger, and some of our people will leave. You see, as I say it here, the totality of the discrimination against persons with disabilities make it very, very clear. Persons with disabilities, they receive the priority attention will be screening anywhere. So on this area here, the only out of staff there need to receive the necessary training, the instructions, the directives from the INA to tell them once you see a person with a disability, don't park in. You receive him immediately, give him the opportunity to vote and let him do. Because another issue here is the matter of security around that place. We're experiencing a lot of things. When you come to voting centers, sometimes voting can be delayed unnecessarily without explanation until when they start getting dark. When you start getting dark, they say what happened, or anything happened, talks coming, and other people coming to come and disrupt the place. This ballot box snatchers and other political parties, when they see that they are losing, they will come and disrupt the entire place. The security is being provided in fully unit. They need to understand that persons with disabilities need to be protected first before any other person. Vulnerability at that point is very, very high. You may not be able to run. You may not be able to hear what is truly happening. Before you know it, you are bam here. Then you see stones dropping from left, right, etc. To come and hit you. With your disability, you will not be able to run. You may not see the road to run. It's another issue. So in this is yeah, the issue of accessibility, to people unit is another issue. Yeah, I like Chairman was here. Talk about taking to the streets. And then he raised a question. It is just simple money to be able to control Karama. It doesn't take anything. The fact here is there are different rounds. There are rounds for vehicles. There are rounds for suitcases to the airport. There are rounds for wheelchair users. And there are rounds for hospital beds. So when you see this issue of ramming, somebody can be able to construct a ram instead of having the access road to the person with a disability. It may end up creating another point for accident. So as an institution, we want to come in to see how together we can be able to address this issue of accessibility to communities. We have already developed a regulation around accessibility. And therefore, the regulation is already receiving attention. We are hoping that the regulation will, before mid of November, to be able to get the necessary approval for the regulation. We state very clearly the dimensions needed, everything needed for a particular accessibility facility. So in this case, yeah, as an institution, the law says we are expected to provide accessibility facilities everywhere in Nigeria. In an example, relationship and partnership with the LCC ministry to LCC. Be able to negotiate and the LCC today. Our people are starting only to see already the compare accessibility with the high. The Federal Capital Development Authority will ready to fund their many information that we have an accessibility in the commitment to provide accessibility facilities. We will find a common ground to collaborate with INS, be able to see what we can be able to do, to provide the accessibility at the polling unit across the country. An additional factor here is for us and the disability community. So one the courage and the confidence to be there to work. Sit down at home and to fear what may happen at the polling unit may deny you your right to perform your civic duties as a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Sincerely speaking, the issue of this water apathy for the disability community is something very important for us to address. I once belong to that community. I once belong to that group of those who are interested to go and vote. Since I lost my hearing ability, all the elections that happened, all the elections that happened from 1997 until the 2007 general election that I participated. All that, I say, yeah, if I go there, I want to. You see, when it comes to registration, you get my voter's card. My brother forced me to go and give it. I got my person, my voter's card. I give you a minute. Now after the voter's card, when it comes to registration, I will tell you, if I see them in queue like this, I see people waiting like this, I will just skip. Then I will run away, I will go somewhere. When I go somewhere, I will go and get biro, blue biro. I will open the ink there, I will put it here on my finger here, just to show my father that I when I voted. You know, this is so we have a lot of people that can be able to have that attitude. There is need for us to take that away and make sure that we go and vote. So many the courage to go and vote. So that we can contribute our quota and who becomes our leader. If you do not vote, you may end up endorsing a role leader. And then once you endorse a role leader, whatever the role leader comes and do, you have no moral something to complain. You have no moral something to complain. So it is better for us as a community to command the courage to go and vote. We continue to thank INEC for all the commitment. To put our own hands together and make sure that we act and move forward together.
Let's take have another applause. The man who has the responsibility to make sure that the government caters, understands, and responds to the concern of our community. So another applause for him. I have pointed out some of the issues, lip service, sometimes inadequate response. And what we hope that we have that things will get better. And these basic support will be provided for them. I think it's now the time to bring in our sister, Ms. Grace Jerry, Executive Director, Inclusive Friends Association, for our response. You can go.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Clap for her. Let's clap for her.
I know you are eating, so it's all right if you don't clap, all right? But while you're eating, just pay close attention. Thank you so much. I remember we worked closely with you in terms of making provision for the amendment of the Electoral Act. And interestingly, it has become our reality today. I remember the Inclusive Friends Association started putting together proposals on the amendment of this act since 2016. And we are glad that together with the ABLE Foundation, we worked on ensuring that the amendment of the Electoral Act got into the act in good time. We were together at the National Assembly during the repealing to also bring up these issues. And we're glad that our issues have made way into the Electoral Act as amended 2022. 2023 election is going to be the first time I would say that the Electoral Act will be piloted. The new Electoral Act with the new guidelines ensuring or mandating INEC on making all this election all inclusive for persons with disabilities. But like the chairman says and Professor Sokoye also mentioned, INEC already has started making these provisions available in previous elections. But what we are asking for moving forward, because if you look at what the election is beginning, the direction the election is beginning to take. I would say that this is the first time in a long time that persons with disabilities are more ready to exercise their franchise. You could see in terms of the turnout for the CVR registration. I remember a week before the CVR exercise closed, we launched a campaign where persons with disabilities, we had to take CVR very close to them. Because a lot of persons with disabilities complained that they could not get to the INEC offices, local government offices, to even register. Most of them had accessibility challenges in terms of transportation, accessibility of even the environment. And we worked closely with INEC to say, please, can we take CVR very close to these people? And in the 1 week remaining for the CVR exercise to close, I remember that at the end of the day, we had about 11,000 persons with disabilities who registered within the space of that 1 week. And it just goes to say that imagine if we had worked on time with INEC to take CVR very close to the community of persons with disabilities, more and more persons would have registered. So this just gives us a heads up for the subsequent continuous voter registration exercises that will be conducted. That INEC should work closely with organizations of people with disabilities to prioritize the CVR registration by taking this registration very, very close to the people. Now my colleagues have talked about the collection of the PVCs. While we have begun to document more interest of the community of persons with disabilities to vote, remember that you cannot vote without your PVC. So all effort needs to be made by you first as an individual and organizations of persons with disabilities working closely with INEC and even INEC to ensure that this community collects their PVC. If we're going to talk about changing the narrative, if we're going to talk about changing issues around inclusive governance for persons with disabilities, it is important that you and I participate in the process. Don't just sit at home and say they didn't carry us along. If there is a word that PWDs like to use the most, is that word. You did not carry us along. This is an opportunity to carry yourself along. And don't wait to be carried along. This is an opportunity to carry yourself along by first ensuring you collect your PVC. Now, our recommendation for INEC, I may not get the opportunity to say this because of time, is that we need to tie number to participation of persons with disabilities in this election. In previous elections, we have always talked about increased participation. But because we do not have a data recorded on Form EC40H, accurate information on the spot information on election day. At the end of election, international observation missions will reach out to us and say, how many persons with disabilities voted? And we cannot provide that data. We've not been able to tie number to participation of persons with disability community. I want to make a recommendation for this election that the Form EC40H be put to proper use. Please, on the spot documentation of persons with disabilities who vote on election day should be captured. The ad hoc staff should not say, I will document it later. Document it later, your head is already hot. You can't document anything later. So on the spot documentation of number, so that we can have a number tied to it. And that in a way promotes the work that we do as civil society organizations to say that we are increasing participation, because we can say these thousands of numbers of persons with disabilities voted on election day. We want to ask that we work closely with you in terms of that, and to every organization that would be observing the election. Please also, part of your questions for your checklist, also put a clause there that will document the number of persons with disabilities who vote on election day. And my last recommendation would be in the area of training of the ad hoc staff. INEC has worked excellently well in making provision of these assistive technologies. And part of it, I would say that this deployment should be sustained of the Brave Alert Guide, the magnifying glasses, the election day written instruction for the deaf, and the new voting cubicle that we have just presented to INEC. That's accessible voting cubicle. We also want to see deployed for this election. Now, the gap that we are talking about is in the interaction of the ad hoc staff with the person with disability. That is the last point of interaction. Yes, training of trainers is done. It trickles down all the way to the ad hoc staff. The ad hoc staff is the last point of encounter with the person with disability. They need to be adequately trained on how to make provisions or how the proper utilization of these materials for persons with disabilities. They need to identify what the Braille ballot guide looks like, and it should be kept on their table so that immediately a blind person comes, they administer it. The poster for the deaf, which is the Form EC30 EPWD, should be pasted on the wall. That is very important. It shouldn't be left in their bags or under the table. It should be pasted on the wall so that when a deaf person comes to vote, the ad hoc staff can just point your attention to that poster, and that poster tells you what to do. Whether there's a sign language interpreter or not at the polling unit, that poster tells you what to do. And finally, I would say that it's important that they learn or they understand the various types of disabilities so that they know who a person with disability is. I remember during one of the observations, because we normally deploy team of observers to go observe at every election, they could not identify or agree to some disabilities because they were not sure if it was a disability or not. My observer team had to tell them this is a disability. So they also need to understand the various types of disabilities so they know who to give priority to during the election. Those are the recommendations I will make for now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. She spoke from the perspective of somebody who is involved, who was involved in the process, leading to the enactment of what is now a major change in the legislative framework of elections in Nigeria, particularly as it relates to persons with disability. I will turn it open for question and comment, and I guess the environment is good enough for all of us to contribute. 3 key points I want to raise at this point. It's clear from INEC and our own perspective, collaborating agencies and institutions and persons, that we have made progress. We've moved from nothing to something. INEC has worked hard, worked smartly with everybody to come to a point where we can say there is legal visibility for persons with disability in the electoral process. There's now a legal authorization for affirmative action, whether in terms of providing necessary tools and the technology to assist persons with disability in voting, or even prioritizing their voting. So we now have that now as a form of legal provision. Again, we are seeing increased resources invested both at the level of INEC and NGOs like ABLE2VOTE Foundation and others to train not just the officials of INEC and other electoral officers, ad hoc staff, and so on, but to train we ourselves, persons with disability. I include myself because as the chair of the Albino Association of Nigerian Board, I'm also a person with disability. So to train us to understand the various requirements and processes. So that's an important development I see ongoing. We need more training, like she pointed out, we need more training. First, INEC officials and their ad hoc staff need to understand the dimensions and the types of disability. So people can quarrel whether A amounts to a person's ability to access those priority provisions or not. So INEC has to do more to make sure everyone understands the evolving categories. I remember about 5-7 years ago when I got up with Jack, the UN didn't have a charter on albinism as a form of disability. So it's the advocacy that made even the UN to acknowledge that this is something that should be part of a health protocol for development. So I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow we put another category of disability as strong enough to be captured in this process. So INEC should be forward-looking and make sure they are up to date with these provisions. Again, like she pointed out very clearly, laws on paper are nothing except we use them. Except you are willing to come out and vote and take advantage of all these innovations, whether in terms of technology, facility, or law, they amount to nothing. And therefore, it's important that persons with disability go out and take their PVC now that INEC is giving PVCs out. Of course, INEC will make some provisions to digitalize collection centers. I think they need to be more. They need to be more flexible. Maybe events like this can even constitute a collection point. Such events where there are mass gathering of Nigerians can become opportunity for collection. I know there are issues of security and logistic control, but we should be more flexible. I think I think that is good. We should be more flexible to make it easier for Nigerians to collect their PVC. If they don't collect, we are happy that like something million have registered to vote, but we would like to have close to 80 million or up to 90 who have collected their PVC and therefore entitled to vote, especially persons with disability. So that's a work that needs to be done, work in progress. The issue of training cannot be emphasized. We need to train more and more training. Happily, the diplomatic partners are willing to keep on supporting Bureau Foundation and similar organizations who are involved in this work. And finally, I would like to say this, that how you know a developed society is how it treats those who are less fortunate in different ways, whether the poor, the oppressed, the gender that are not well mainstreamed, or persons with disability. So a developed country, a civilized, a humane society shows by how it treats those who are either underprivileged, those who are suffering, living with disability of one form or the other, or those who are basically not privileged. And so it's good that Nigeria has gone further to sign up to these protocols and domesticate these requirements in our law. I remember as a young lawyer over 20 years ago or thereabouts, when I started a pilot project in Lagos, trying to help the Lagos state government provide these ramps and other enablement for persons with disability. In this case, persons who don't have good use of their limb and their hands. It was a project that I did because I was trying to domesticate the law in the US. I'm happy that today it's now mainstream that we are not talking about, but I'm sad that we are still talking about making it mandatory for public facilities to carry this. This should have been done over 10 years ago, but it's not yet late. The best time was yesterday, but the next best time should be today. And so as we leave, let's not forget that we have to increase that advocacy for very basic facilities for every person to have access to building, access to facility, and access to political participation. I want to request your comments, questions, before we get back to the panelists for their concluding remarks. Any person wants to make a comment or question from the floor, this is the time for us now to have their interactions for a couple of minutes before we sign off. Yes? Or I will first of yes. Do you have any microphone? Or you want to come step out or a microphone? MC, sir, is there any facility for microphones? Okay. There's a lady raising her hand down there at the fourth row. Okay, man, you can get on with the microphone, or you can speak from there. We can hear you by the grace of God. The Nigerian, which is by the grace of God.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My question is this. Actually, 3 years ago was when I find out I'm able. I don't say I'm disabled. And before then, I had my PDC. So, and it's today I'm getting to know the program now that there is space and data for those with people with disabilities. Before, when my information was taken, I wasn't an amputee. But now I am, so I don't know what process to go about that. Or during the election process, will there still be, because my card is not indicated at all. I don't know what to do about that. My question this afternoon.
Okay, I think that will be answered. Yes, let's take further question. I think why is the microphone? I don't even know what the microphone is. There's somebody at the middle, yes, right there. I have two of them one by one.
Something
Thank you, MC, for being a servant leader.
What I really want to say is that sometimes we get to the polling station to where to register, where to register, especially myself, because of my other hand that is not as it is now. If I get there to register, it has been a problem to me. They will tell me that my hand cannot be captured. So I find it so difficult. I go there several times before I could be able to register. I'm going to collect the PVC again. It's another thing. They say it has not come. Every time I come, I go there, it has not come. So I don't know really what to do. Maybe I will try again.
Thank you very much. Maybe I should even add a question to that to our other here to amplify your view. Is it possible that INEC can notify registrants when their PVC is due for collection, so that people don't spend money going through and through? What would have been more comfortable would be that maybe an email or a WhatsApp notification say, Sasa Mamadi, your PVC is waiting for collection, just like the banks do for us. So that's another question I would like INEC to take as we move ahead. Okay, yes, go ahead. And after him, the secretary of my secretary, legislation.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Emmanuel Nifas, coming from Jos. My question is going directly to my boss, Mr. Festus Okoye. When you talk about employing persons living with disability to the INEC artwork staff, what mood and procedures are you going to use in selecting those people? Or do you have a group of disabled that you select them and put them in that artwork staff? And secondly, my question again is that during voting, in this country, no one is to be trusted of. Why would INEC give a room for example, a visually impaired person can bring his family member to help him in voting, so that it must not be only the actual staff there that can help him to vote? Because if you use your family member, you will be assured that maybe what you told him to do, he's doing the right thing. Thank you, sir.
Correct. Okay, let's go to the secretary. The secretary.
Thank you very much. Before I ask my question, let me commend Festus Okoye. You have been very, very proactive, even on the social media and television and radio, about issues of election and the matters that come in. My question is a follow-up to what my board of director chairman just said. Now, because of the challenges persons with disability have, most of them went and registered online. And now we are told that most of the people that registered online, because of one thing or the other, they will not be able to access their PVC before the election. You know that it is because we are trying to look for the easiest way. That is why persons with disability went to register online. Now, majority of the persons with disability who have registered online, from what I'm hearing now, because we need to go and verify something in the physical in the office, and because of the challenges involved, we could not go. Now, most of us that registered online have been disenfranchised. What is INEC doing about that? Thank you very much.
Sorry, I say young man. I'm not sure. It's okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anshe Bartholomew. I'm from Benue, by the grace of God, chairman of the Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities Benue chapter. First of all, I want to thank Jenny Bele and everyone who put all efforts together to make this program a successful one. You will recall, I thought the national president would have mentioned this. You will recall that the Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities is a conglomeration of clusters, and by the grace of God, 6 so far. Going by this number, one of the clusters is not recognized, or not the interest is not recognized in the INEC registration and subsequently voting. which is leprosy survivors. Now my question is, why is it that it's not possible for these people to be included when you are talking about all inclusion? Why are they left out? And if you are recognizing clusters, why is their own not represented? I asked this question at INEC headquarters in my state, but they told me that there are efforts in place to ensure that these people are also included. How soon? That is number one. Number two, going by INEC guidelines, at the state level, they are supposed to be meeting with persons with disability quarterly. By this implication, in my state, I did not observe that. I asked questions, but no one seems to answer me. I don't know if the committee can please also answer to this one. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think there are a couple of hands down there. Let's take a couple of one or two to get back. I hope persons not overwhelmed, but everything is terrible. But that's why he's INEC commissioner, by the way.
Hello, I'm from Nigeria Association for the Blind, the women leader. I want to thank the ABLE Foundation. Especially my thanks goes to JK for putting up this organization, at least for organizing this and enlightening people that they can vote easily. It's true we have been hearing it, but it has not been easy. And we pray that this time it will be as easy as it is being sung. I want to thank my learned colleague, Barrister Festus, for being proactive. Thank you, Barrister Festus. And thank you, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. So what I'm trying to also plead is that I want to appeal to you, the INEC, to please, as you have promised, to bring polling votes closer to houses. I think it will be very, very good. Because since I moved to Buhari, I've been asking where we are to make our vote. They said Buhari Council. And it's very, very far. Please, I'll be very grateful if you people implement what you said. Thank you.
And the last, before we come back to persons, any of the ladies here, any of those ladies, it does not hand, you can then come back, but if there's a lady's hand, please take it. Give, well, there's no lady, okay, there's a lady here. There's a lady with ability, sure. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I want to say, in respect of, I want to appreciate the INEC for their work so far in inclusion of persons living with disability. My question I want to ask the INEC here is that during the election proper, my suggestion is if they will put each polling unit should have inclusion of persons with ability so that it will be easier because there is nothing about us without us. So if a person that is not living with disability is not to handle, the person is to handle somebody that is living with disability, automatically it will be difficult. But if a person with disability is there in the polling unit to address his own family members, which are persons with disability, I believe it will be very, very easier. Let me cite this example. In my community where I normally go to cast my vote, each time I go there, there is a queue of line. And notwithstanding, I'm not supposed to join the queue because of the sun. Because in that area, in my polling unit, there is no trees around. So I find it difficult to go because of joining the queue. It takes a long time, and they don't know that persons with albinism are not supposed to stay under the sun to form the queue. So if they are to cite one person in each polling unit that is living with disability, I believe the inclusion will be very, very effective, and it will make life and voting exercise easier for we persons that are living with disability. Thank you.
So let's clap for the panel as we come back for responses.
Okay, I think because persons have so much to say, maybe we can start with those who have maybe remarks or further observations. So I'll start with my sister, Grace. If you have anything more to say on it, the persons will now take the last because there's not a lot of work to do.
I think what I would say, although our boss here, Festus, would be better to do justice to all of these questions, but what I would say to our community of persons with disabilities, and for those who probably cannot see me, I'm also a person with disabilities on a wheelchair. One of the things that we should try to get is first-hand information, and not just work based on what we think is happening. I remember when the CBR exercise began, those who already have their PVCs in previous CBR exercise had the opportunity to go back and revalidate their information. Go on the INEC portal and put your information if you are a person with disability. I'm saying this because of what a lady who said she was not an amputee when she did her registration, but now she's an amputee. You actually had the opportunity to go update your information, but you probably didn't access that information. But let me say to all of you now, because of the modified aspect of that INEC portal, you have the opportunity to go and put your information as a person with disability. And when you put that information, automatically you have updated your information on the INEC register. Subsequent exercises will come. Take advantage of such exercises, all right? And someone asked your questions about those ad hoc staff. I think it's corpus. INEC is enrolling youth corps members as ad hoc staff. So my young man from Plateau State, if you are a youth corps member, this is an opportunity for you to apply on the INEC portal. But if you are no longer, if you have jumped and passed that stage, you can talk to your friends who are persons with disabilities, graduates with disabilities who are serving, to go and register as ad hoc staff.
Thank you very much. And,
I want to make my concluding remarks with regards to security. The most vulnerable group during an election period is persons with disabilities. And the current arrangement with the Nigerian police force and other security apparatus might not necessarily be sufficient to take care of the security of persons with disabilities during the elections. So my own opinion, or what I would suggest to INEC to actually look into, is to be creative with regards to engaging community leaders. There are communities that have vigilantes. There are engaging other stakeholders to ensure that security is prioritized in local security. That's what I'm pointing at. Local security is prioritized. Thank you.
That's a question as to who first to be evacuated in time of trouble. When there's crisis, who should be the first to be taken care of? Of course, the persons with disabilities, because they are less capable of defending themselves. Okay, so now let's pass the mic to our friend, the embattled and much praised INEC commissioner.
Thank you, Sam. Let me just say this from the onset. In the next few days, the commission will announce the exact number of persons who completed their registration during the continuous voters registration exercise. Also, in the next few days, the commission will announce the number of invalid registrants. The chairman of the commission has given the number as 2.7 million. But in the next few days, we are going to segregate that particular number according to the states and the number of invalid registrants we have in the various states. Immediately we conclude this particular exercise, because we have completed the cleaning up of the number of registrants during the continuous voters registration exercise. Immediately thereafter, we will announce the date for the display of the voters register in the 734 local government areas of Nigeria and in the 8,809 registration areas or wards. In the next few days also, and these things are going to happen very soon, the Commission will announce the dates, the exact dates for PVC collection. Out of the over 12 million Nigerians that registered during the continuous voters registration exercise, the Commission has printed over 7 million of the permanent voters cards. We have also printed the permanent voters cards of those who carried out transfer and that of those whose PVCs were damaged or defaced. The challenge is that we don't want to make available these PVCs piecemeal, because previously I had announced that the PVCs of those who registered between the 15th day of January 2022 and 30th day of June 2022 will be ready for collection this October, while those who registered between the 1st day of July and 31st day of July 2022 will be ready for collection by November. But we realize that if we segregate it, those who registered in July will also go for their PVC collection, and it will create a lot of challenges. And so we are going to talk in all the PVCs at the same time, and tomorrow, being Thursday, the Commission will consider guidelines for PVC collection, because we don't want a situation where there will be huge challenges during PVC collection. As has also been pointed out, during the registration exercise, the Commission collected the telephone numbers of the registrants. Those who had email addresses, we also collected their numbers. The moment we are ready for the exact date of PVC collection, we are going to send text messages to all the registrants who supplied their telephone numbers and email to all those who supplied their email addresses. That's exactly what we are going to do. And we have also designed a framework where in each registration area, we will cluster, in each local government, we will cluster 2 electoral wards together for ease of collection. Some of the resident electoral commissioners and also some of the administrative secretaries have also been directed to carry out rotation. In other words, they can rotate the PVC collection within the registration areas in their local government to make it easier for people to collect their PVCs. Now, on the issue of one of the colleagues here raised the issue of people in the leprosy colony. What we did is that we introduced what we call the IVED, INEC voter enrollment device. And the INEC voter enrollment device is able to capture your fingerprints and also capture your facials. So if you don't have fingerprints to be captured, we capture your facials only. This is because on election day, it is either the that captures your fingerprints or captures your facials. And so we introduced this process during the continuous voters registration exercise. Now, on the issue of quarterly meetings, incidentally, our administrative secretary in Benue is one of the most experienced administrative secretaries in the commission. So on the issue of quarterly meetings, I'm going to raise it with him, and I'm confident that he will convene such meetings in order for a proper consultation and partnership to be forged between the commission and persons with disabilities. Now, on election day, in terms of voting, I have taken on board the suggestions that have been made in relation to training. All the ad hoc staff we are recruiting, we are giving them additional training. additional training in handling the beavers, and also additional training in handling inclusivity. We believe that this is very, very important. Now, for the 2023 general election, we are preparing for 95 million registered voters. We are preparing for 95 million voters. And we are also preparing to recruit over 1.4 million ad hoc staff. And these ad hoc staff are youth corps members and students of federal tertiary institutions. So those who are going to conduct the elections are basically Nigerians. So we are going to give them training, especially on different aspects of disability, and so that when somebody with disability comes to the polling unit, they can treat the person with some level of courtesy. But you will also agree with me that the atmosphere at the polling units on election day is not easy. In some polling units, it is very rowdy. In some polling units, it's very difficult to even control the crowd. In some polling units, sometimes you have some level of violence. In some polling units, you have some level of order. In some polling units, they recognize the fact that persons with disability can have priority. In some polling units, they won't even agree. Unfortunately, at the level of the polling units on election day, those we have at the venue of the election, at the precincts of the election venue, are unarmed police officers or armed security agents. And sometimes our people do not even obey them. So it's a difficult struggle that involves advocacy, involves enlightenment, and also involves awareness creation, so that Nigerians will understand that the only way we can build a nation where people will be happy, where everybody will find himself or herself in it, is by building a nation of inclusivity. On the issue of recruitment, I think Jerry has answered the issue of recruitment. The recruitment is for corps members who are still serving and for corps members who have just passed out. It is also for students in federal tertiary institutions. It is also for those who serve in federal government parastatals, commissions, and boards. That is where we recruit supervisory presiding officers from. So if you're a senior officer in any of these establishments, in any federal government commission, in any federal government agency, or in any federal government board, you'll be eligible to apply. And I want to assure you that during this particular application, the commission will make sure that we isolate the list containing persons with disability and give them some level of priority in terms of recruitment. There is no doubt about that. Now, those that registered online, I think Jerry tried to clarify that. What we did with the online registration is called pre-registration. It's not registration. You do what we call pre-registration. In other words, you capture your data, your name, your date of birth, and other information. But the law is that you must still appear physically before a registration officer for us to capture your biometrics. That is the only way and the only time you have completed your registration. So what we did was pre-registration, and if you don't go to capture your biometrics, the implication is that your registration has lapsed. And that is what happened to some of our colleagues. And going forward, in relation to that, I believe that we are going to accelerate civic and voter education to make sure that people properly and comprehensively understand the registration process and what they are supposed to do. Now, if you also look at the figures from the CVR, in terms of persons with disability, a total out of the 12 million persons that registered, persons with disability form a total of 87,083. And out of this figure, persons with ability, we are leading with 20,513, followed by persons with autism. So I think that it depends on the work the clusters do, and also depends on the level of awareness among some of the clusters that we make progress. Now, fortunately, the chairman of the commission just came back from the US. And in the US, we met with different organizations. We went to the United States Agency for International Development, and we went to different organizations. And in almost all of them, the chairman kept on campaigning for additional support for organizations with persons with disability, kept on campaigning for additional support to procure additional magnifying glasses and procure additional assistive aids for persons with disability. And I believe that from the promises that were made and from all our interactions, that this definitely will be done. Now, in terms of gathering data at the level of the polling units, yes, we have forms for gathering data at the level of the polling units on election day in terms of the disability status of persons. But unfortunately, some of the presiding officers and assistant presiding officers simply leave these forms in their bags on election day and just come back with them. But that forms part of our training to make sure that they do what they are supposed to do, and also make sure that they carry out the instructions given by the commission. Now, and finally for me, some of the facilities we use on election day are not our facilities. The schools belong to local governments. The schools belong to state governments. Some of the facilities belong to communities. What we have done is to compile the schools that belong to the state governments and also compile the schools that belong to the local governments. And we have forwarded the list to them, pleading with them, one, to improve facilities in these schools, and also to make it easy and accessible for persons with disability to access these schools on election day. And so we are going to continue to do our best, working with the different clusters of persons with disability to make sure that, one, that those of us in the commission properly understand disability issues, properly understand disability language, and also do the needful to make sure that we build an inclusive commission and also an inclusive electoral process that will work for all of us. Because we believe that working together, nobody should be left behind. And this commission will not leave any Nigerian behind in terms of the electoral process. Thank you.
Well, I like to fight INEC, but today I don't have enough justification to attack INEC, to attack my friend Festus. I think great job they have done. Just to say, very important, that what we have seen so far is a result of organization, mobilizing. You know, they say instead of agonizing, you should do what? Organize. It's not fortuitous that persons living with ability came first in number of registration. It shows the level of activity in that club. So the message to all of us is to further strengthen the work within our various clusters. The more you work, the more visibility. The more visibility, the more support. And the more support, you have better results. I want to first thank the community of persons with disability for the great job you've done in the last 1 year. It's not, let's start for all members of this community. It's not easy to get electoral reform that makes major inclusion of all our concerns. I think it's a victory for all of us for being able to get a law that at least gives us something to hold on to. And I also want to thank the INEC especially for being a responsive organization under a responsible and effective leadership that will achieve all this for us. I want to thankfully, our panel, members of this panel are also members of the coalition that worked on these issues and keep working on these issues. And I think we should go home with this simple message. We have done well, but our tax is not over. We need to see a re-election. After the election, the report from the international local observers, we will see INEC and everybody scored very high on inclusion, actual inclusion of voting, arrangement of voting structure, provision of voting aids, and disciplined management of voting process by INEC officials and the aides and the other staff. Security is important, and I'm sure INEC will work on that. But also, all of us, as members of the Nigerian community, should understand that persons with disability need extra protection and safeguard in the likely unanticipated but possible event of conflicts, chaos, or disturbance at voting places. So on that note, I want to say thank you to the panelists for a great job, and thank you for our members for good participation. And of course, I invite the MC to continue the job. Thank you very much. They said we're going to take a good picture. Okay, no problem. Let's go quickly, okay? Well, Jenny.
Please, let's invite Mr. Jake Ipele to join. Good picture. Please, let's clap for the panel one more time. Put your hands together for them. They've done a good job. While we are taking the picture, I also want to invite my favorite band. From now going forward, they are my best band. Anything I'm doing, if you don't hire them, I won't MC. Please put your hands together for them. Let them do some song for us while we are taking the picture. Well, I think you can come and move this picture. Yes, please. Please, let's wait for the first lady. Well, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, just before we leave, it's important that we take the vote of thanks. And to do that, let me especially welcome our program manager, the Alpino Foundation, in the president. Please put your hands together for her as she comes up to tell us thank you. In fact, we should thank her more because she has not slept in 1 week putting this together. Please put your hands together for her.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Please permit me to stand on existing protocols. Before I do the vote of thanks, I would like to reiterate that the recently released INEC list of candidates for the governorship aspirants has 2 persons with disability. And I proudly announce that the 2 of them, one from Akwa Ibom, PDP, and one from Sokoto, ADP, are persons with albinism. I think we should start to that. Okay, so we thank our special guest of honor, the INEC chairman, Professor Yakubu Mamu, and we thank the honorable federal commissioners, the French embassy, the US embassy, the chairman of the National Institution for Public Relations, the chairman of the National Population Commission, the Ministry of Women Affairs, the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, JONAPID, or the cluster heads and organizations of persons with disabilities. We thank you so much for your support in mobilizing the participants that we saw today. We thank you all, our amiable panelists, for your beautiful and very brilliant contributions to the topic that we discussed today. And thank you also for your recommendations. These are duly and highly noted. Thank you. And of course, special thanks to our funding partner, the European Union, under the European Union supports to democratic governance in Nigeria. And we will not fail to thank the staff and the management of the Albino Foundation. And of course, our distinguished invited guests who are present here today. We thank the members of the media. We thank everyone that worked behind the scenes to see to the successful implementation of this major project for us. We are very, very grateful. And then thank you all our friends and the friends of the community for your cooperation and for your partnership and support to us. And finally, I'm going to leave you with this. Disability, without disability, we have ability. So we are able to vote. Beyond the ability to vote, we should also get our PVC. And then do not forget, you are always a champion for disability inclusion. Thank you very much.
Please clap for her. Let's appreciate her. Thank you very much. Well, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are all VIPs now. We are all equal. Carry your nylon by yourself and your water and get ready to go home. And we'll be on our feet as we honor Nigeria with the national anthem. My name is Benjamin Ubiri. They call me Ben 200. Half human, half amazing. It's been an honor to be your MC for today. We'll take the national anthem now to signify the closing of this. You can take pictures and share them on social media. Sound. Well, thank you very much. There is a dancing competition taking place in front here. If you know you can dance and you are ready to win a prize, come to the front. The band is ready.